Hello, it's good to see you. I'm really sorry that I have not read more of the story before now. I was going to do it last weekend, and I'll be honest with you, I just forgot. I had every intention of doing it, and I just forgot. So I'm really sorry. I don't actually have a lot to read tonight. It may end up taking longer than I expect, but I have to get up super early in the morning. I have to get up about 4:45 in the morning because my son is going on an overnight field trip with his grade in school, and we have to have him at the school at 5:30 a.m. in the morning. So I need to go to bed really early tonight. So it's kind of early in the evening. But I'm going to read as much as I can because I feel bad that I haven't done any. I'm sorry about that. So right now we are at chapter 137. So I'm just going to get started. Okay. I'm sorry. Pollen is picking up around here and it's messing with me. Okay. Chapter 137. Liddy stayed outside long enough to smoke another cigarette before going back inside. A few people were lounging in the den watching television, and still more were at the dining room table bent over their Bibles. Liddy snickered at them on her way to the refrigerator, where she selected a can of Dr. Pepper and a pickle. Drew was waiting for her upstairs, and she met Liddy in the hallway outside of the bathroom. "Where have you been?" "I told you I might be home late tonight." "Well, here I am." Liddy glanced at the clock in the bathroom. "Is it really 8:30 already? Good God, I didn't realize I'd been gone that long." "Were you with Aiden?" "No, actually. I was with Pastor Steele, Brother Spellman, and Ken. And Denali, but you don't know him. Or you shouldn't know him. But then you shouldn't know Aiden either, and you do. I don't know who knows who or what anymore." "I don't know any Denali," Drew said. "Does he go to the church?" Liddy took a bite of the pickle. "Yeah, you might say that. Let's go in my room." They sat on the bed. "Where was Aiden if he wasn't with you?" Drew asked. "I don't know. He said he had something he had to go do. I'm supposed to meet him again at midnight. I feel like I'm back in high school, sneaking out and going places late at night." Liddy offered Drew some of her soda. "I'm supposed to be writing Pastor Faust's life story, but how can I write it without mentioning Aiden? He's played such a big part in everything, but nobody believed me if I said, 'Oh yeah, there was this angel who was actually responsible for like 99% of all those so-called miracles that you thought Pastor Faust did.' Who'd believe me?" "Who said you're supposed to write about Pastor Faust's life?" Drew asked. "That's the first I've heard of that." "Haven't you ever wondered why I have to hang out with Aiden so much?" Liddy asked her. "No, I just figured he was helping you like he has me and Ken and Richard and everybody." "Aiden's the one who asked me to write Pastor Faust's biography. That's why I have to go and do all these little projects for him." "Have you started on it yet, the biography?" "Not exactly. I've written a lot of things down, and I keep a journal on everything I've done, or that Aiden's done, or just whatever's going on. I guess I'll have to work from that. And I have a lot of stuff on tape, too. Really confidential stuff. Stuff that nobody knows about. Everything's locked up in this little safe I bought." "Girl, you better keep that safe hid. Somebody from the church could come take it." Drew looked around. "Who else knows you're doing this? I wouldn't trust anybody in this place if I were you." "I don't think anybody knows. Aiden told me not to tell anybody." "Well, then why are you telling me?" Drew asked. "Because I have a feeling I won't have to keep it a secret much longer. Something's happening tonight at midnight, and I think it's going to be pretty major. I don't know that for a fact, but you best stay near a phone." "What did Aiden say about tonight?" Drew asked. "Just that I had to meet him out front at midnight. That's all I know." "Well, damn, that could be anything. Maybe you're going to go witness a late-night booty call at the Single Brothers dorms or something. Ew, Drew, that's gross." Liddy got up to open a window and get a pack of cigarettes off her dresser. A few flakes of snow swirled in and landed on the floor beneath the window. She offered Drew a cigarette, and they stood by the window to blow the smoke outside. "Aiden's got a secret," Liddy said. "There's something he really wants to tell me, but it's like he can't bring himself to do it." "I'm afraid, Drew. I'm scared to death to find out what that something is." "Maybe he's got a crush on you," Drew said. "No, I'm serious. Something's about to happen, and I think he's tried to tell me about it several times over the past month or so, but he can't bring himself to do it." Whatever it is, I'm about to find out. Okay, chapter 138. This is page 666. This could be bad. I'm really sorry. I really am. Chapter 138. It seemed stupid to try to get any sleep, so I stayed up, watched Caddyshack with Drew and a couple other heathens in the den, and basically wasted the time. Maybe I should have been writing some notes about our little visit to the prison or organizing my cassette tapes or something, but I just wasn't up to it. All I wanted to do was not think about the church or Pastor Faust or whatever Aiden wanted to drag me out in the middle of the night to show me. By midnight, I'd smoked about a half a pack of cigarettes and worn out a 5-foot path in the snow by pacing in front of the house. It was deathly silent out. Then I heard a noise behind me. It was Ken coming out the front door. "What are you doing up?" I asked him. He carefully closed the door and locked it. "I'm meeting Aiden. I suppose you are too." "Yeah, he didn't say anything about you coming along, though." "He didn't mention you either. He didn't mention you to me either." "What did he tell you?" I asked. "What did he tell you?" "Just to meet him here at midnight." An awkward silence followed. Ken made a fuss of looking at his watch after a minute. "Where is he?" "He's on the way." We saw his red Carmen Ghia coming down the street about that time. It stopped at the curb and Aiden stepped out. "Good evening," he said, and he came over to us. He looked good, all dressed up in a nice black suit. He always dressed like that, but he looked a little more formal that night. "Are you ready?" "I'm ready," Ken said. "I guess I am," I said. "I just wish I knew what it was I needed to be ready for." Aiden took me by the hand. "Come on, you can ride in the front." "You don't mind, do you, Ken?" Ken shook his head. We all got in and got situated, and Aiden took off in the direction he'd come. "It's been a long time since you were in this car, hasn't it?" he asked, looking at me. "Quite a while," I said. "Over 2 years. And the sad thing is, I'm almost as clueless now as I was then about all this." "Not true," Aiden said. "You're not the bright-eyed, eager young newbie that you were then. You know all the ministry's ugly secrets. Well, almost all." Ken snickered. I took a deep breath. "Aiden, I really don't want to go into this thing blind. I don't know what we're doing, or where we're going. I don't know anything. I'm sick of being in the dark all the time. I don't mean to be ugly, but I've busted my ass for you over the last few months, and you've done nothing for me in return. It's about time you gave me something to work with, something to go on." He kept silent. "Do you understand, Aiden? Am I getting through at all? I'm not going to be your little note-taker and errand person anymore unless you let me know what the hell's going on." Aiden snapped his fingers. "I knew there was something I forgot to ask you before we left your house. Your mentioning being my little note-taker reminded me of it. Did you remember to bring the tape recorder and some tapes?" I grunted. "Yes." Ken reached up from the back and put a hand on my shoulder. "Relax," he said. "It's going to be all right. I promise you. Nothing bad's going to happen. Not to us." "It must be nice to be considered worthy of a little information every now and then," I said. Aiden glanced over at me and smiled. "I know how you must be feeling right now, Liddy, and I know this hasn't been easy on you. But don't worry, you're not being set up for some elaborate practical joke. There's a reason I haven't told you everything. If I had been up front with you from the start, you wouldn't have helped me, and I couldn't have forced you to. Too much information in the beginning would have scared you off." "You're not doing anything to ease my mind," I said. "That's exactly what they do at the church." I noticed that my palms were sweaty right about then. "I just have this feeling you're about to drive us off a cliff or something." Ken reached up and patted me on the shoulder again. "I said not to worry. Aiden's not interested in hurting us. And why would he be? It's—" Aiden reached over and pinched Ken on the wrist. His hand went limp and slid off my shoulder. I looked back at him and I freaked out because I thought he was dead at first. Turns out he was just asleep. "We've heard enough out of Ken for a little while," Aiden said. "He knows where we're going, but he's not going to be the one to tell you." "Stop the car," I said. "I think I'm going to throw up." "Do you know when I first met Charles?" Aiden asked. "When you what?" I really do feel sick. Aiden handed me a fresh pack of cigarettes and rolled his window halfway down. We kept going. I met him for the first time when he was 19 years old. You've heard the story of the vision he had out there on that lonely dirt road, I'm sure. That's when it happened. That's the first time he ever laid eyes on me and knew who I was. What I was. This was in... You might want to turn on that tape recorder before I go any further. I fumbled around in my purse and pulled it out. It already had a fresh tape in it, and I turned it on to record. Then I lit a cigarette and tried to calm down. Okay, it's on. I just told you that Charles Faust first met me when he was 19 years old. This was when he still lived in North Carolina. It was 1956. What happened after that? I asked. Well, he told me that he didn't need my help. He said he could do it on his own, so I left him alone at that time. But I thought you had to stay with whoever you're assigned to until they die. I never said I had to stay until they died, Aiden said. That's your misunderstanding. Every case is different. Charles didn't want my help, so I didn't intervene right away. What'd you do? I waited for him to come to me. How could he come to you? How'd he know where to find you? All he had to do was say my name, and I came. Just say your name. That's it. That's it. This was in 1970. I do admire him for trying to make it without me for 14 years. He just couldn't do it forever. Couldn't do it? What do you mean? From everything I've heard, he had a great ministry in North Carolina and Colorado. Did it ever occur to you to wonder why he left North Carolina in the first place? The Lord called him to go to Colorado. Aiden laughed. That's what you were told. You find out the man's a pedophile and likes to abuse the young boys and men in the church, yet you still believe everything else they told you in that ministry. Why is that? Fine, whatever. So the Lord didn't call him. A pause. Liddy, do you have another guess as to why he left? No. He left his family, his home, everything he had ever known. He went way off to a place he'd never been to before. I suppose the Lord could just call a person to do something like that, but in my experience, normal people don't just pick up and move away without some serious planning and a logical reason. Yeah, I get that. What's the reason? Do you remember going to see Pastor Hammer back when Charles was a little boy? God, don't remind me. Yes, I remember. Was he running away from Pastor Hammer? No, look beyond that. Charles left as an adult, but he was sexually abused as a child. What happens to some victims of childhood sexual abuse? They go on to abuse others as adults, like Pastor Faust did here in the church. Not all victims go on to do that, but some do. Do you think that was a new behavior for Charles here in Dalton Fisher? Aiden asked. No, probably not. Oh God, I get it now. Brian Dixon. Pastor Faust got busted. Or maybe he was about to, so he ran off before anybody could catch him. He went as far away as that pathetic little Volkswagen Beetle would take him, and that was to Wealth Springs, Colorado. He was there long enough to get caught again. He married Ruby as a cover-up. Nobody suspects married men of being pedophiles, or so the pedophile thinks. But he still had to move again because he continued to do it out there. Then he came here to Dalton Fisher, Indiana. He figured he was far enough away from both North Carolina and Colorado not to run into any old acquaintances here. Dear God. So Charles came here in 1970, Aiden said. He tried to get his church going, but he finally realized that without my help, he'd never be able to do everything he wanted to. He couldn't keep running forever. So finally, he came to me. Aiden turned off the windshield wipers, and the snow started to build up on the windshield. Aren't you just sick of this snow? He asked. What? I don't care about the stupid snow. I want to know how you could stand by and let Pastor Faust do all the things he's done. You helped him, even. I've had enough of it for now, I believe. Aiden flicked the wipers on for one more swipe and then turned them off. It stopped snowing. How did you do that? I said, more of a statement than a question. I was afraid I already knew. How were you able to make it stop snowing? The same way I put Ken to sleep, make butterflies out of soil, and stop the rain at your baptism 2 years ago. This isn't news to you, Liddy. I can do anything on this earth that I choose. Yeah, I know, but I'm free to do anything on this earth. I felt another wave of nausea. My mind was spinning. What is it, Liddy? He asked. Whatever it is, you can ask me. Never mind. I don't want to ask you anything. Can we talk about whatever else? Move on if there was anything else you wanted to talk to me about. Do you know what Aiden, move on. Talk about something else before I puke in your floorboard. Well, you saw my first day on the job, so to speak, Aiden said. You remember the tornado? Yeah. I flicked my cigarette ashes out the cracked passenger window. That was right out of the Twilight Zone, us standing there in that little building and nothing inside blowing around or anything. Everything outside was just getting torn to shreds by that thing coming down the street. Aiden grinned. It was impressive, if I do say so myself. You did that? You? I destroyed an entire town so Charles could show off and look like a big shot. But I have to admit, it's the first time anyone's ever asked me to whip up a tornado. Not bad for a first attempt, huh? Did anybody die? I don't think so. I never really bothered to check. You never really bothered to check? What kind of angel are you? Aiden pulled off the road and turned the engine off. He took my cigarette and flipped it out the window. He held my hands. I'm the kind of angel that does things for people, Liddy. I do these things for a price. But you don't. I help people until they die. And now it's Charles's time to die. You probably figured that out when you saw him this afternoon. It's past time. They're quick to agree to the terms, but when the time comes, they always fight to live. They do whatever they can just to get one more day. He took a breath. Even if that means attempting to deceive the one who came here to help them. I don't understand, Aiden. I was near tears. Charles and I made a pact the day of the tornado back in 1970. I would be his assistant and give him the life he wanted, but in return, when I said it was time to go, he'd leave this life behind and go with me. But as I said, they always fight when the time finally comes. That's normal, and I plan for it accordingly. Charles just took it a step further than he should have. What did he do? I asked. Do you understand first what I'm telling you, Liddy? Do you understand what I am? I looked in his eyes. They were the same light blue, warm, lovely eyes I'd seen almost every day for months now. You're an angel. You help people. I pulled away. I help them for a price, Liddy. How can it not matter to you if people die? I asked. Aiden quickly started the car and pulled back on the road. I began to cry. He didn't look at me. I have no reason to believe you'll ever speak to me again after tonight, he said. I've never lied to you, but I have hidden very important things from you, which is just as deceitful. I'm sorry it had to be this way. Stop the car and let me out, I said. I want out of here. I want you to see something, he said. Just stay with me a little longer, and then you'll never have to see me or talk to me again. I didn't know what to say. Ken rustled around in the back, but he didn't wake up. I remember praying to God and asking him to get me out of there, but he didn't. Aiden handed me a tissue. Don't you want to know what Charles did? How he went too far? Don't talk to me, I said. The whole car felt evil, and I was so close to opening the door and jumping out. Aiden took the tape recorder out of my lap and held it up to his lips. Charles's time came months ago, but he didn't want to go. Well, they never do, and I can understand that, but that was the deal. He got to do whatever he wanted for the remainder of his life, and in the end, he gave up his soul. I felt a pressure bearing down on my chest, and I was having trouble breathing. I put my hands over my ears to block what Aiden was saying. Please, I said to no one. Jesus, God, help me. Aiden continued. Liddy, I'm an agent of Satan, but Charles was a smart one. He knows a good opportunity when he sees it. Denali came to him and offered him a longer life, and he went for it. I suppose he believed Denali when he told Charles that I'd never find out. But why would he believe Denali? That's one thing I will never understand. Denali's just like me, and Charles knew that. Why trust us? So Charles got to live longer. The only trouble is, Denali never promised Charles a better, longer life. He only promised him more time. It didn't occur to Charles that he should ask for a better, longer life, and as they say, the devil's in the details. Quality doesn't necessarily come with quantity, as Charles has no doubt figured out by now, the poor thing. Denali came to me as soon as the deal had been made. That's when I came looking for you, Liddy. I was telling you the truth when I said I wanted you to write Charles's biography. And I still want you to, even if you only do it because you want to get the message out there about what sick bastards like Charles are doing to people in the name of God. It doesn't matter in the end why you write the book, only that you write it. Get the word out there about the monster that Charles T. Faust is, Liddy. I took my hands away from my ears. Why? I couldn't bring myself to finish the sentence. Why do I want you to write that book? He asked, his voice becoming harsher. It's almost scary to hear on the tape. Because I'm patient. Because I waited 2 years for this. Because I came and recruited you to wipe every positive thing, to obliterate every good, worthwhile thing Charles ever did. I want it erased from the mind of every human being that ever walks the earth. He was raging, shaking. Because you don't cheat in this game and expect to come out a winner. I was terrified. I said, please don't hurt me at that point, though I hadn't planned on saying it. I was scared to death, but not of Aiden. Not really. I don't know how to put into words what I was afraid of. We arrived at the prison, and Aiden stopped the car right by the front steps. Ken stirred in the back seat and groaned. Are we there? He asked. Aiden turned off the tape recorder and stuck it in my purse. Ken, go on in. Wait for us in the hallway outside his cell. He then got out of the car to let Ken out. Ken ran up the steps and through the front door. The guard just stood there like nothing was happening. Aiden came around to my side of the car and opened the door. He kneeled down in front of me. You and Ken will be driving back tonight, and when you get home, tell Ken he can have the car. I won't be needing it anymore. The title's in the glove compartment, and it's already in his name. I tried to get out past him, but he stopped me. Please come inside with me. This won't take long, and then you and Ken can go home. I'm not going anywhere, I said. I couldn't look at him for more than a second. Please come with me, Liddy. I know you had a great deal of trust in me. You're not going to hell for having faith in me, and you're not in any sort of danger. You didn't know what I was. Ken gets the car as a gift from me, and I have something for you if you're willing to accept it. I drew away from him. I don't want anything from you. I'm sorry I ever asked you to tell me anything. I would have had to tell you whether you asked me or not. It's so important to the book that you know these things before you begin. He took my hands and helped me out of the car. You know what I'm here to do, don't you? He asked. I nodded. We went up to the front door, past the guard, and on into the building. None of the doors were locked or even shut. I guess if I hadn't been so shell-shocked, it would have been awfully cool to be able to just stroll in there like we did. But then Aiden and I got to do a lot of cool things. We approached Ken, who was leaning up against the wall at the end of a long hallway. He's asleep, he said as we came near. He looked so eager. Go ahead, Aiden said. Ken pushed the door to Pastor Faust's cell open and strolled in. We could hear him muttering something. I couldn't make out what he was saying, but it didn't sound nice. Pastor Faust sat up just as Aiden and I got to his cell. His bed was in the right-hand corner of the cell. He looked at Ken, then at Aiden and me. No, he said. He scrambled across the bed back into the corner. You can't do this to me. Not now. Aiden went into his cell. Hello, Charles. He spoke with a controlled anger. Aiden. Pastor Faust's eyes widened. He crouched on the bed, still in the corner. I didn't mean anything by it. That thing with Denali, it wasn't anything to... Ken cut him off. Where's the cocky attitude from this afternoon? What have you got to be afraid of, Charles? Pastor Faust suddenly grabbed at his chest and gasped. He bent over slightly on the bed. Oh, not yet, Aiden said. Not before you answer a few questions. You've taken over 20 of the best years of Ken's life. The least you can do is humor him for a minute or two. Ken was fighting hard not to cry. I don't know if he got that way all of a sudden or if it had been building up. He was a mess of emotions, probably. I want to know. He took a deep breath and paused. Then he exhaled and said, "You had no right to do the things you did. The things you did to me, Eduardo, all those other hundreds, literally hundreds of men. You had no right. You're no different from any other man, and I don't care what you call yourself. You're no bishop. You're no pastor. All you did was start a business that allowed you to rape and abuse hundreds of people in the name of God." Pastor Faust's pain seemed to ease up a bit. He was still crouching on the far corner of the bed, but he looked a little more relaxed. He sneered at Ken the whole time he was talking. "You don't really believe that," he said. "You can't possibly think that all I did was bad things. What man on this earth hasn't done a few things that he's sorry for? Who hasn't sinned among us? Ken, yeah, I'm no different from you or any other man. I made mistakes, and so have you. Whatever mistakes I've made, I've already paid for. I have more than paid for them. You've made more than your share of mistakes and sinned in your lifetime. How come I don't hear you talking about that?" "I'm not here to talk about me," Ken said. I thought, they always try to turn it back on you. Good for you for not taking the bait this time. "You know, sweet and bitter water cannot come from the same well," Pastor Faust said. "So what does that say about you, Ken?" "Don't give me that sweet and bitter water speech," Ken said. "The same logic applies to you. How can a man be a good pastor, an anointed man of God, and also a man who rapes little boys?" "Now hold on a second." Pastor Faust moved in closer. "I never raped anybody. What they did willingly. I don't care what was said in that courtroom. Eduardo came to me and did those things with me of his own free will." He was shaking a finger at Ken. "And what you did, that was consensual. I never tied you or anybody down. Nobody held a gun to your head. You watch yourself. I ain't dead yet, and I will fight for what I know to be the truth as long as I've got breath in me, so you just watch what you're saying." "Come on," I whispered to Ken. "Come on. You can do it." Aiden was standing by the open cell door while this was taking place. He checked his watch, then looked back up at Ken and Pastor Faust. Ken wiped his forehead. He was white as a sheet. "You're wrong, Pastor Faust. Charles, you're wrong. You used that church so you could have all us single guys at your beck and call. And you murdered Judith because you knew I was thinking about leaving the church. You..." He bent down and covered his face. He sobbed. "Judith? What are you talking about?" Pastor Faust said. "I never..." "Oh, I guess I did say something to you. That's when you took off." "Yeah, that was that night." "I never did learn to not shoot my mouth off without thinking first. Good thing I didn't testify in court, huh? I'd have shot myself in the foot more than likely." "I already forgave you for taking off and leaving the ministry, so I don't hold it against you." "Oh, but you were better off without Judith. Really? You were. You got to see that by now. And hey, we raised up two good kids, didn't we? Of course, they both turned out to be spineless traitors like their old man, but you can't have everything, I don't reckon." Ken stood up straight and looked at Pastor Faust. His hands shook, and then before I knew what was happening, those hands were wrapped around Pastor Faust's throat and choking the life out of him. Aiden did nothing to stop him. It was all over in a matter of seconds. Pastor Faust didn't put up much of a fight, and then when Ken let go and got up off the bed, Pastor Faust didn't move. There was no sound. No bells or whistles or fuss. Nothing. I looked over to Aiden to see what he was going to do, but he was gone. I walked Ken out of the prison and down to the car. Nobody came running to check on Pastor Faust, and nobody tried to stop us. I wondered how long this spell would last. Ken didn't look too good. I opened the passenger door for him, and he sort of fell into the seat, like all the muscles in his legs had let go at once. We'd gone about a mile, and he hadn't said a word. He just stared straight ahead, no expression on his face. "Are you okay?" I asked him. No response. "It's over. How does it feel, knowing you've..." "I wish we could have let him rot in jail," Ken said. "Just leave him there alone to deal with what he's done." "Yeah," I said. It hadn't started snowing again, but it was still bitterly cold out. I turned the heat on. But then, I don't know. I don't believe he would have seen that he'd done anything wrong that way. Even down to the very end, he wasn't sorry for anything he ever did. Did you hear him? He still wasn't sorry. Didn't see any reason to be. I remember how he used to say in the church, "This ain't Burger King, it's my way or the highway." Well, I guess Aiden's showing him something a little different now. Ken sat there silent for a moment and then chuckled. Except now it's not the burgers that are flame broiled. I didn't know it for a fact, but I had a feeling at that moment that Ken was going to be all right. He'd be one of the ones who came out on the other side. Maybe not anytime soon, but one day. Chapter 139. Carl was standing by one of the large windows in Pastor Faust's old office, smoking one of Pastor Faust's cigars when the phone rang. Denali got up from his seat on the couch to answer it. Carl glanced at the clock on the wall. It was 1 o'clock in the morning. "Took 'em long enough," he said. Denali brought the phone to Carl, and Carl listened intently to the person on the other end. "Yes, I understand. Quite unfortunate. Well, thanks for letting me know. Bye now." He slowly handed the receiver back to Denali, and he was grinning. "It's over." Denali hung up the phone. "How does it feel?" Carl flicked the ashes off the end of his cigar onto the carpet. "It feels wonderful. I can't even begin to describe what it's like. It took a lot to get to this point, but wow, this is worth it." He looked around the room. "All this is mine. The church, the house, his congregation, everything he ever had is mine. We did it." "Of course, you're going to have to make a special You're going to have a special meeting at the church tomorrow to make the announcement," Denali said. Carl waved it away. "Who cares about that? Let's go out and celebrate." "What do you want to do?" Most people would go out and get drunk or something. I just want to take a walk around the campus so I can look at everything." "In the snow?" Denali asked. "I don't care about the snow. I just want to, I really want to dance a jig or something. Ding dong, the bishop's dead." I bet he'd do anything to have a chance to come back and wring my neck right now. He's got to know I've got the run of the place now that he's gone. "I doubt he's had time to think about it yet," Denali said. "Aiden's still with him." "Yeah, but when Aiden's done..." "Yes, Carl, he'll have eternity to think about it. Before we get too involved in surveying your new little kingdom, we need to go check on Ruby." "What for? Can't we just call her or something? I mean, damn, it's party time. I waited way too long for this to now have to... How would it look to the congregation if you didn't go over there and comfort her in her time of need? Can't you put a spell on them or something?" Denali took Carl's cigar and stubbed it out. "Get your coat." They walked down to Ruby's little house just across the river. The Single brothers had shoveled out a path to it and salted it down to keep it from refreezing. Carl saw a light on in her living room window. "You reckon somebody called her from the prison?" he asked. "Dr. Spellman called," Denali said. "Stop smiling. I can't help it." Ruby came to the door quickly. She let Carl and Denali in without saying a word, then sat back down in a recliner near the window. Carl knelt down at her feet. "How are you, sis? You holding up okay?" Ruby nodded and looked away. "I take it you've already heard." "Just a few minutes ago," she said. Do you think I could come by the house tomorrow sometime? I gave Charles this really nice set of ivory cufflinks for his birthday last year, and I can't find them in the boxes of stuff the brothers moved over here from there. Would you mind if I stopped by and looked for them? I'd like to find them so Charles could wear them at the funeral. You could..." "I think we should pray," Carl said, and he took her hands. "Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the peace and comfort that I know you'll bring to our dear sister Ruby tonight. Yes, Lord. And Lord, I know you'll be there with her tomorrow when she tells our congregation of your loyal followers what has happened tonight. Amen, Jesus. Keep her safe in your arms, dear Lord. Help her let go and move on with her life as you would have her to do. In Jesus' precious name, amen." Ruby looked down at him. "You want me to get up there and speak?" She was shaking slightly. "Sis, it's not what I want you to do. The Lord has seen fit to show me that it's your time to shine. You are the one he wants to tell everybody about Pastor Faust's passing. Get up there and speak from the heart. Tell him what a wonderful man Pastor Faust was, if that's what you feel led to do." Denali tapped Carl on the shoulder and cleared his throat, but Carl ignored him and continued. "Don't you see where it'd be sort of... I don't know if wrong is the word I'm looking for, but it just wouldn't be appropriate for me to do it. Plus, we can't go against what the Lord has already commanded us to do, can we? No, Ruby said. No, we can't, but I'm not. Now, I'm not telling you how to make your speech or anything, but if I were you, I'd put a bit of emphasis on renewal somewhere on over towards the end. You know, moving on and growing in the church, not living in the past and all that good stuff. We can't let Pastor Faust's death hold us back or bog us down. He wouldn't want that, and the Lord doesn't want that. Amen, sis? I really don't want to do this, Carl. Carl ducked his head down inside. Sis, do it for the good of the church. Take one for the team, you know? Just, it's the Lord's bidding, and we're in no position to question that. I'll have the brothers start calling people at about 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, so be ready to go on stage, let's say around 10. Now, are you going to be okay if I leave you here alone tonight? Ruby put her hands over her mouth to stifle a sob. No, she managed to say. Carl stood up. Sis, God bless you. I'll be praying for you. The Lord will help you make it through if you choose to listen to Him. He patted her on the shoulder and then walked out the door with Denali behind him. Carl and Denali walked back down towards the river. Don't you think that was a little harsh? Denali asked. What? Harsh? The way I figured, it's about time she had to get up and do something for the church. Take some initiative. Why should everybody else have to take the heat all the time? But asking her to go up there tomorrow, look, she turned a blind eye for years while he did his thing with all those people, those young boys and everything. It's time for her to suck it up and take on some responsibility in this church. I'm sick of watching her be coddled and doted on all the time. Why shouldn't I be expected to do everything around here? Denali looked out at the water. You knew those things were going on too. You didn't do anything to stop them. How can you expect me to do anything? I was just as traumatized as the rest of them. Plus, I knew why it was happening, and I knew it wasn't going to stop anyway. It's not my fault. Ruby didn't know the real deal with Aiden and all that, and she still didn't do anything. So that's worse in my opinion. Well, it's not just my opinion either, it's a fact. All she'll probably do is get up there and say Charles is dead, Denali said. Can't you do that? I'm sick and tired of having to clean up Charles's messes, Carl said. I've been doing it ever since I got here. All those reporters shoving microphones and cameras in my face, people calling the church at all hours of the day and night making threats. I'm just sick of it. But I thought this is what you wanted, Denali said. Back when we first met, you said you wanted everything Charles had. You said you wanted to take it away from him. Carl laughed. Yeah, and I showed him, didn't I? And thanks to me, he got to live long enough to see everything good he ever tried to accomplish get ruined. It was all a joke anyway, you know? All those charities he donated money to, all that community service crap. It was one big sham to help get more young bucks in here to service him. Carl clenched his fists. But he screwed up the day he recruited me, you know? He took me in, made me feel like I had people who cared about me, gave me some direction, a purpose in life, but you don't. He thought I was like all those other suckers, those sheep. Then he did what he did to me. How can I have any faith in a ministry that lets that sort of thing happen? I didn't know it was going on until it had already been done to me. And now look at you, Denali said. He gestured up the hill to the church. All of this is yours. The campus, the church, the single brother's apartments, Charles's house, his life. Yeah, and what's he got? Nothing. Thanks to that Lydia girl and what you and Aiden have done, all that'll be left to him by the time they get done is a bad taste in people's mouths. You can't do any better than that. Will you spare Ruby tomorrow and tell the congregation about Charles? Denali asked. Hell no, Carl said. I got an appointment in the morning with a guy who's redoing all the landscaping at the house. I can't help it if Aiden decided to do this tonight. And you know after the congregation hears that Charles is dead, they'll want to hang around the church and boo-hoo for hours. Well, those who still think he wasn't really a fag, they'll expect me to be there to comfort them, and I just don't feel like putting up with it. Denali walked over the bridge, heading back to the church. It's late. You need some sleep. Carl followed him. Speaking of landscaping, are the brothers going to be helping out? I hadn't thought about it, but I guess they could, Carl said. It'd save me from having to pay the landscapers people and keep them out of trouble for a day or two. Why? You could ask Noel to come out. Let him do a little manual labor to get back in your good graces. Noel? You can forget that. I've already got a special job lined up for him tomorrow. He'll be cleaning the grease pits in the garage. Then, if he finishes with that in time, and if he's really good, I might let him scrub out the toilet in the back room. I think that'd be a good place for him, Denali said. And you'll be checking up on him, won't you? Of course. Maybe I'll go give him one of my little come-to-Jesus motivational speeches tomorrow. That would be wonderful, Denali said. I'm sure he'll appreciate that. Chapter 140. Everybody was asleep by the time we made it back to the little concert hall around 2 o'clock. I parked around back, turned the car off, and held the keys out to Ken. Aiden told me to tell you that the car's yours, I said. The title's already in your name. It's in the glove compartment. I could see Ken's face in the glow of the back porch light. For me? I can't take this car. It's Satan's work. Do you have a car yet? I asked. No. Do you have any money for a car? No, but I'll get one as soon as I can. I'm still trying to find a job. Why don't you just take it? I said. Maybe sell it if nothing else. I'll get one eventually. There's no good excuse for taking things from Satan. But how can you sit there and say that when Aiden's the one that got you in the prison so you could kill Pastor Faust? You can't have it both ways. Carl sat there silently for a moment. I guess he was trying to come up with an answer, but after a minute, he took the keys out of my hand. It really is a neat little car, he said. And if it's used by a man of God, it can't be all bad, I said. Amen. Amen, Liddy. It was dark as a dungeon in the house. There wasn't a single light on inside. I told Ken I was going to stay outside long enough to smoke. I figured he'd just go on inside, but he opted to stand out there in the freezing cold with me. I saw him looking at my cigarette. You want one? I asked. Nah, thanks anyway. Pastor Faust used to say that it was a sin to smoke. And then I saw him light up a cigar in his office one day. It was really bizarre. Somehow I rationalized it in my mind, like whatever Pastor Faust did was okay as long as it was him doing it. I imagine everybody in the church had to do that to some extent, I said. You know, like somebody tells you can't go out and buy a new pair of shoes to replace the ones you're wearing that have got holes in them because you need to give that money to the church, but then you see the pastor's driving a Corvette or a new Harley. But you just move on and do as you're told because you're supposed to be focused on uplifting the ministry, not on your own needs or wants. That's how they get you, Ken said. Pastor Charles would say the Lord led him to see this, or the Lord revealed such and such to him, and that's why you now have to do some ridiculous thing that makes no sense. And if you're a parishioner, what do? You suck it up and go along with it. Because, hey, if the pastor said it, it must be true, right? Why would the pastor lie? I said. He's looking out for us. Ken laughed. That's the biggest lie of them all. The truth is, nobody was looking out for us. We prayed. We worked ourselves half to death. We came to church for every single service and every single meeting, even if it was the middle of the night. We gave every penny we had, and then he turned towards the house, and he just stood there looking. Ken? And there's a whole house full of them right there, Liddy. Think of all the hours and years just wasted. All those young men in there. Some of them won't ever recover from what's happened to them. They may even turn away from Christianity altogether because of what what Charles did to them. And it could have been stopped years ago. He turned away. I should have done something. Why didn't I do anything about it? You thought you were doing what God wanted you to, I said, and Pastor Faust found enough random scripture verses to string together to make it make sense to you at the time. He was crying. I went over to him and rubbed his back. Ken, you looked up to Pastor Faust like he was a god, and you trusted the things he told you. We were all fooled. You weren't the only one. Hundreds of men walked away from the church and never told a soul what Pastor Faust was really doing. He slowly turned and looked at me. Liddy, I killed him. I just choked a man to death. He started walking back towards the car. Where are you going? What if they come looking for me? I came out of the prison and I sat down right here in the car, got in on the passenger side, and I had just killed somebody. Now here we are. They're bound to come get me. He fished the keys out of his pocket. I have to go. I got to get out of here. I grabbed his arm. Ken, nobody's going to come looking for you. Nobody, okay? Like you said on the way to the prison, Aiden's got it under control, and nothing's going to happen to you. You still believe that, don't you? Yeah, but how do you kill a man and get away with it? I looked down at the trampled gray snow at our feet, the same way Pastor Faust got away with killing your wife. Ken exhaled forcefully and looked all around like he was ready to run from something. I need a drink or some sleep. I don't know what I need. Are we going to tell everybody else what just happened? I said, that Pastor Faust is dead. They need to hear it from us, Ken said, not from anybody at the church. That's going to be a big shock to some of them. They'll need someone there to comfort them. Don't let that someone be you any more than you have to, I said. I hate that motorcycle. You've had enough of a shock tonight. I think you're still in shock, as a matter of fact, but just, if you can help it, don't focus so much on what everybody else needs. It's okay to worry about yourself every once in a while. Yeah. He took a handkerchief out of his pocket and wiped his face with it. Can I have a cigarette? Seriously? If it's okay for Charles, it's okay for me. He lit the cigarette and took a drag off it. Thanks. He tried not to cough. Don't tell anybody I did this. I won't. We stood there in silence as he smoked the rest of it. He stubbed it out and put the butt in his pocket. That's the first and last time I'll ever be a smoker, he said. But you know what? They're not half bad. Chapter 141. Lydia and Ken decided to wait until first thing in the morning to deliver the news. There was no need to wake everybody up in the middle of the night. Lydia went into her room and closed the door. She turned on the lamp near her bed. That's a lot to deal with, she said to herself. All at one time, and I never saw it coming. Why couldn't I see it? She looked up and saw that it was snowing again outside. The whole thing was just a great big joke, and every person in this house was the butt of that joke. Ha ha! Shame on us! This sucks. She heard a noise, a shuffling in the hall, and stopped talking for a moment until it passed. Probably just somebody going to the bathroom. Enjoy your ignorant bliss, she whispered after they were gone. I wonder if they'll be happy to hear Pastor Faust is dead. She sat silent for a moment, thinking. Liddy. Liddy jumped at the sound of her name. She looked around, peered into the dark corners of the room. Who is that? Aiden slowly walked toward her from the shadows. Don't be afraid. She crawled up onto the bed and scurried back toward the headboard. What are you doing here? Go away. Why are you still awake? He kept moving forward. Get out! She threw a pillow at him. Aiden stopped at the foot of the bed. Liddy, I'm not here to hurt you. I understand you're confused and a bit shocked right now, but I mean you no harm. What is it about me that scares you so much? What scares me? You're a damn agent of Satan. That may not do much for you, but down here with us humans, it's a pretty good reason to get freaked out. And I told you I didn't ever want to talk to you again, so you shouldn't even be here. I just wanted to make sure you got home safely. Is Ken here? He's asleep. Liddy pulled a blanket up over her legs. Angels don't have to sleep, Aiden said. There were many nights that I came into your room and just watched you as you slept. It was the best part of my day sometimes. Liddy shuddered. That I didn't need to know. There usually isn't much else to do at night, he said. That doesn't make it any less creepy. Coming in here and watching me sleep? God, what a comfort. I'll thank you to spend your nights someplace else. I'll be leaving soon, and I'll have to do that once I'm gone. I wasn't expecting to be back so quickly, but sometimes it doesn't take long to do what I do. There's no way that this can be good for my salvation, sitting here and listening to you. Liddy started to get up, but Aiden motioned for her to stop. I told you before that you're safe. It's not going to hurt your chances of getting into heaven or make you fall out of favor or anything. It's going to help. I'm going to help you help other people escape damnation. That makes it okay to be here listening to me. I've already told you I'd write that stupid book. What else could you possibly want from me? It's not over yet, Aiden said. There's still more you don't know. Things that have to happen. I guess Pastor Steele will be running the church now, Liddy said. It'll be like having Hitler for a pastor. Hitler on crack. Aiden leaned against the footboard of the bed. I'm not going to require you to go back to the church, he said. I've already told you that. But if you could learn a little bit more about all this, some extracurricular work, so to speak, would you go back there? What's in it for me? Liddy said. It depends on when you go. Take tomorrow morning, for example. There will be an emergency meeting about Charles's death, and from what I hear, Carl's going to make Ruby get up and make the announcement. Why her? Because Carl's not a very nice man. He has no consideration for other people's feelings. You probably picked up on that by now. As long as he doesn't have to waste time at the church or get his hands dirty, he's happy. I'm not interested, Liddy said. Aiden sighed. I'll leave that up to you, of course. Please give it some more thought, though. What did you think of what happened tonight? I think I don't get as much out of watching people die as you do, Liddy said. That's not always the case, Aiden said. Now, Charles, I did take a special pleasure in delivering him to hell. But as for the rest of them, no, I don't particularly enjoy it. I know what they're missing out on. Heaven, Liddy said. Aiden turned and looked out the window. Yeah, heaven. He shook himself. And Charles got a special treat. I took him up to the gates of heaven to let him take a look at what he was missing out on. Well, he made his choices, Liddy said. Aiden was quiet for a moment. He looked out the window again. Up to the gates is the closest I'll ever get to heaven again. Oh, Liddy said. But I made my choices too. In a way, I'm no better than Charles. Liddy glared at him. You sure had me fooled, right up until tonight. I thought you were all right. I went from trusting God, to trusting Pastor Faust, to trusting you. And then all three of you ended up letting me down. I know it looks that way, Liddy, but if you'll just give it some time. What for? Liddy said. You were the only person I felt like I could trust, and you turned out to be the biggest liar of them all. Now you're leaving. Oh, and not to mention the fact that you're one of Satan's little helpers. Pastor Faust's dead, and God's not doing a damn thing to make me want to follow his lead. How's time going to fix any of that? I don't see where anything's going to change anytime soon. She wrung her hands. I'd really like to get some sleep tonight. I only came by to see if you were okay. Are you? What do you think? Liddy got up and grabbed her pack of cigarettes off the dresser. Her lighter was inside the pack. She dumped it out along with one cigarette. I think you're probably very confused, tired, and mad at me. Why should I be mad? Liddy said. You're just a big fake like everybody else around here. All happy and smiling, and you seem perfectly trustworthy, acting like my best friend, and all this time... She shook her head and lit the cigarette. She didn't even bother to open a window. You know, I had a feeling you were going to tell me something, or some major thing was about to happen, but never once did I think it'd be this. God almighty. I must be the biggest dumbass on the planet. For having faith in someone? For wanting to make a difference? Liddy flicked her cigarette in an empty Pepsi can. That's not what I mean. How could you be a... How come I didn't figure out what you are? As soon as I found out what Pastor Faust was doing, I should have asked you right then why you hadn't done anything to stop him. But I didn't. She rubbed her forehead. It's got nothing to do with whether or not I want to save the world. It's just that I must be some sort of a moron for not putting all this together before you whop me upside the head with it. Faith and love are a lot alike, Aiden said. They can both make you temporarily blind to certain facts. Like the battered wife who keeps going back to her husband every time he says he's sorry for the things he's done. But I love him, she says. Liddy shrugged and flicked her cigarette again. It's true that I recruited you to come here and do a job for me, but you came here with a genuine desire to do something for God. The open arms looked like the right place for you. You thought, Hey, these Christians are really going places and making a difference. They're not just sitting on the pews once a week. I want to be a part of that. That doesn't make you stupid. I didn't want a stupid person. Like Charles and Carl, or like any cult leader, stupid people serve no purpose in my plan. I need someone with a brain, someone with some heart and creativity. You have those things. You have everything I need to get the job done. Lucky me. I mean it, Hayden said. You're in a very unique position here. You have knowledge that no one else has and no one else has ever had. And you're going to have the opportunity one day to enlighten lots of people about Charles and people like him. Maybe you can prevent this sort of abuse from happening to other people. Liddy moved back toward the bed, away from him. You're a fine one to talk about abuse. She stuffed her cigarette into the can and swished it around, heard the fsss of it extinguishing itself in the bit of liquid left in the bottom of the can. Look at what all you let happen. Look at all the stuff you did. What do you care about helping people? I don't care. Not really. I consult and guide people who traded their soul for worldly things. As I said before, in this case, all I really want is to wipe out every positive thing Charles ever did. I made sure Charles knew before I left him tonight that that's what I intend to do. I love that look of rage, that anger, wanting to stop me but knowing there's nothing he can do about it. I've seen that look on the faces of hundreds of his young men over the past 27 years. It left a nice, lasting image for me to remember Charles by. So helping other people with this book I'm supposed to write is just a pleasant, unintended result of that. It'll give you something to keep you motivated, Aiden said. You'll need that. Liddy rubbed her forehead again. I'm starting to get a headache. Please go. Did you get your things out of Ken's car, the tape recorder? I'll get 'em out in the morning. Liddy, leave, she said. I mean it. Hayden walked out and closed the door behind him. He peeped in at Ken, who was sleeping uncovered, bunched up in a fitful ball on his bed. Aiden gently pulled the covers over him before leaving him alone for the night. Chapter 142. I didn't want to open my eyes the next morning for fear that everything had been a dream. Maybe in the hopes that it all had been a dream. I don't know. I opened one eye halfway and saw that the sun was just starting to come up. Ken might be up, I thought. I sat up and squinted at my dresser. Are my cigarettes over there? I was smoking way too much. I went and got one anyway. I was about halfway through with my first cigarette of the day when Ken knocked on my bedroom door. Liddy, are you up yet? He was whispering. Come on in, I said after glancing down to make sure I was decent. I guess sweatpants and a t-shirt is decent enough. Ken opened the door quietly and tiptoed in. Everybody's still asleep from what I can tell, he said. What time is it? I asked. It's about 7:30. I was thinking maybe we could go downstairs and start making breakfasts for everybody. Then we can just make the general announcement after everybody sits down to eat. I stared at him in wonder. God, it really happened, didn't it? We actually went to the prison last night, and Pastor Faust is dead. And Aiden's, Ken looked away. Yeah, it really happened. So what do you think? About what? About what all happened last night? I think truth really is stranger than fiction. This should be a lot of fun to write a book about. No, I meant, do you want to go make breakfast for everybody? What day is this? I said. I believe it's Thursday. I'm not sure. I think time had stopped for both of us, and it stood still for a lot more people that day. We got breakfast started and then went around and woke everybody up. There were a lot more people staying there than I realized. They packed the dining room and spilled out into the living room and hallway into the kitchen. After we'd managed to get a little bit of something on everyone's plate, Ken called for everybody's attention. He actually stood up on the dining room table to make his announcement. Now, I know it's early, he said, but there's something pretty important I need to make you guys aware of before you hear it anywhere else. Are you listening? How about back there? Good. Can you hear me? All right. Like I was saying, I have some very important news for you. There's no telling what people at the church will be saying, but I can tell you that, well, I'll just come out and say it. Pastor Faust is dead. Someone dropped their plate and it broke on the floor. A pause. Gasps spread through the room. Then cheers. "Hold on," Ken shouted over the noise. "Just hang on a second. I'm not done." The ruckus died down. "Now, they're going to be making an announcement at the church about it sometime later on this morning. I don't know what kind of a spin they're going to put on it, but I have first-hand knowledge. Well, not first-hand, but our own brother, Dr. Spellman, was called to the prison late last night. Pastor Faust was complaining of chest pains. Before Dr. Spellman could get there, Pastor Faust died of a heart attack. Now, this just happened not even 10 hours ago, so obviously there's been no official autopsy done yet. But I spoke with Dr. Spellman very early this morning, and that's his, he confirmed that was the cause of death to the best of his knowledge." No one seemed too concerned about eating after they heard that. There was a lot of commotion, lots of milling about and talking. "Can you believe it?" they said. "Is it true? Pastor Faust is really dead? There's no way. What's going to happen to the church?" Ken came down from the table and got clobbered by people who wanted to ask him these questions. He had to just tell them that that's all he knew, and he'd pass on any new information as soon as he got it. I took my plate of scrambled eggs into the living room and sat down on the arm of the couch. It was the only flat surface in the house without somebody sitting on it other than the floor. Drew happened to walk by and saw me sitting there. She was wide-eyed. "Is this what you were telling me about last night? The thing that I needed to wait by the phone for? Girl, that's major." "I didn't know what was going to happen," I said, but Aiden made it pretty clear that something was up. "I learned a whole lot last night." I looked down at my plate and suddenly felt nauseous. Too much. Drew bent down close to me. "What happened last night?" I looked around. No one was paying us any mind. Ken and I got to go to the prison. We were there when Pastor Faust died, and then I wasn't about to get into the whole deal with Aiden taking Pastor Faust to hell, so I just stopped right there. "God, really? Damn, I wish I could have seen that. Did he die real quick, or did it take a while?" "Oh, it was quick, all right." "Then what?" "Then we came back here." "That's it?" "Yeah," I said, "pretty much." I guess it didn't sound too exciting when you left out all the stuff about Aiden. Drew shrugged. "Well, at least you got to see it." She eyed my plate. "You gonna eat that?" I let her have it. It was a very cold, cloudy day outside. After putting on some jeans, shoes, and a coat, I walked alone up the street to a convenience store for some more cigarettes and a drink, the snow hitting me in the face. A song ran through my mind. The devil went down to Georgia. He was looking for a soul to steal. He was in a bind because he was way behind, and he was willing to make a deal. It fit the pace of my steps, and it made my heart race. How could all this be real? It was more like a movie than my own life. I'd been hanging out with an agent of Satan, the devil himself. I stopped just across the street from the store. "And how exactly am I supposed to get on with a normal life after this?" I said to no one. "Like those people back at the house. Everything we believed was a lie. We're just now finding that out. What are we supposed to do now? Over the past few weeks..." "That's a question all former cult members have to ask themselves," I heard someone say behind me. It was Aiden. I turned around. "What? Why are you here?" He approached me with a fresh pack of cigarettes. I didn't take them from him when he offered, so he stuck them in my coat pocket. "You're just beginning to ask yourself some pretty important questions," he said. "I want to offer you some assistance if you'll permit me." "You've done enough already." He touched my arm. "I really do care about you. I'm here to help. I could leave if I wanted to, but I'm not going anywhere until I know that you're going to be all right. Do you have anything you'd like to ask me?" "I told you..." "I'm not talking about the book," Aiden said. "I know you're going to write it. I'm not worried about that at the moment. It's you I'm concerned about." "Well, considering the fact that you just gave me the biggest shock of my life last night, I've been better. Everything's too weird, and I don't see how your being here is going to make that any easier to deal with." I realized just then that I had on the fur-lined gloves that he'd given me. Man, those things are warm. "Some days will be better than others," Aiden said. I started across the street, and he followed me. We both went inside the convenience store, and he kept talking. "You may feel one day that this whole experience is behind you, and then be crippled with feelings of guilt, anger, resentment, and sadness the next. It's a very slow process. It'll be much easier for you than for the men who have spent years in the church, but you've still got your own cross to bear, no pun intended. I pulled a Dr. Pepper out of the refrigerator case in the back and started toward the cashier. There are people who have left the church who will never open another Bible as long as they live, Aiden said. The cashier looked at him funny. And some will, as regretful as it is, they'll be recruited right into another cult within a matter of months. There are lots of factors working in the situation. Everyone has different personalities, different experiences, different coping mechanisms, different levels of intelligence and common sense, and different value structures. But what's going to happen to you, Liddy? You know, ever since you've come out and told me what you are, you've become a real pain in the ass. We got pandemonium at the house. Nobody knows what the hell's going on, and you want to know what's going to become of me? Like I even know? Good Lord, Aiden. I opened the pack of cigarettes Aiden gave me, and he pulled a Zippo lighter out of his suit pocket and handed it to me. It had my name and a Volkswagen bus engraved on it. I still have it around here somewhere. Well, I lit a cigarette and took a drag off it. I guess I'll get over it like every other bad thing in my life, like everybody else does. You just move on and live your life. What other choice is there except to just lay down and die, rot standing in one place? At least you had minimum exposure to it, Aiden said. Think about people like Ken, I said. What about him? God, that's why I don't worry about myself. I've only been involved with the church a couple years, and most of that was indirectly. I wasn't living here and having to deal with the day-to-day crap that most of these others have had to deal with. I thought about it for a minute. And no way would I give those folks who are still at the church the satisfaction of being able to say that they beat me. I will move on, and I'm going to make something of myself. I don't have to just accept everything that happens. I'm not at anybody's mercy. Why are you angry? Aiden asked. I'm not. I'm just stating a fact. I started walking, and he followed me. They're having an emergency meeting at the church this morning at 10. Would you consider... The days of that church run in my life are over, I said. I'm not going back there. You really should... I stopped walking and faced him. I can't make you go away and leave me alone, but I wish you would. You're not making matters any better. I'm not comfortable around you anymore. You lied to me. And yeah, you're no better than Pastor Faust and the rest of those jackasses. I'm going back to the house, alone. Drew was standing out on the front porch when I returned. They're having a meeting at the church at 10, she said. You going? No way. Girl, I am. I can't wait to hear what Pastor Steele has to say about this. He'll say Pastor Faust was persecuted and died like Jesus on the cross or some shit. I think that's just wrong, the way they compare Pastor Faust to Jesus all the time. It's either blasphemy or something really close to it, I said. But what would you say if you knew Ruby was going to have to tell everybody what happened? Drew looked at me funny. Sis, she never gets up there and talks. Pastor Steele's going to make her get up there. Man, I'm definitely going in. I don't have a ride, though, and nobody else is going as far as I know. Andrew and Veronica came out the front door and seemed a bit surprised to see Drew and me standing there. They started to go back inside, but I motioned for them to stop. Stay out here, I said. The snow had slacked up and nearly stopped. It was almost pleasant outside. I promise we won't bite. They came down and stood on the walkway with me. Andrew stood there and stared at me for the longest time. Are you all right? I finally asked her. Are you going to that meeting at the church at 10? I just feel God's telling me that I need to go, and I don't have a ride. I wasn't planning on going. Veronica nodded at me. God's been speaking to me, too. I had a dream about this last night. He wants us to be there. I almost rolled my eyes. It was Aiden again. Had to be. But I agreed to take 'em, dang it. They really believed it was God, and hey, maybe it was. Who was I to judge at that point? I'd been hanging out with Aiden for over 2 months and never figured out what he really was. Drew's going, I said. They didn't care. I said that I'd only take them if they promised to get along, and they all three promised that they would. We left the house about an hour later. Andra sat in the front like she used to, and Drew and Veronica sat in the back, as far apart as possible. It was very quiet all the way there. Andrew let out a sigh as we passed through the open iron gates. "It's the beginning of the end," she whispered. "God have mercy on us." And that took longer than I expected. But I'm going to stop there because I have to get some sleep. I have to get up really early, like I said. I have to get up at, oh my God, past, yeah, 0 dark 30 in the morning. I gotta get up at about 4:45, and it's gonna suck. So I'm gonna read more. I'm gonna try not to go so long. We are getting near the end. We are now on page 690, so we don't have much more to go. So thank you for sticking with it. I know it's been really long, and I got weepy, and I'm sorry. It will probably happen again, so please overlook that. I'm too invested in these characters. I really love Aiden, and I hate to see her not like him anymore. And it reminds me of stuff that I haven't had to think about in a long time. So, but thank you for watching, and I will be back again, hopefully sooner. The next video will come sooner than this one did. So, I hope you have a good day, and I will see you next time.